Welcome to part 4 in our textbook, Leadership and Influence Processes in Organizations. This is chapter 11, Traditional Leadership Approaches. So chapter 11, 12, and 13 all deal with leadership, so you should probably take those as one section together. It'd be easier to get the overall view of leadership and many of the things that go into it. So here's some of the things we're going to be talking about in the chapter objectives. You should be able to get an idea what is leadership, look at some of the early approaches, and discuss several situational theories about leadership. So we're going to look at different leadership models, both this chapter and the following chapters. So the nature of leadership, right? Leadership's one of those things you hear about all the time. You're not really sure exactly what we're talking about. So, and the other issue that comes up all the time is, can you learn leadership? Right, well, let's look at what leadership is. Right, it is a process, right? It's a thing you do. It's non-coercive influence to direct and coordinate activities of members or groups of members to meet a goal. So it's an active process that you do. So a process is a behavior. It's a thing that we actively do. So if we can learn how to ride a bicycle, if we can learn how to water ski, right, then we can learn leadership. And quite frankly, leadership takes a lot less athletic skill. So can we learn leadership? And the answer is yes. Can everybody learn to be a great leader? No. How do we know this? Because the world's not full of great leaders. The country's not full of great leaders, and my life's not full of great leaders. So anyway, probably yours either. So, but what we can do is make people better leaders. Just like I can't make everybody a great bicycle rider, I can make them a better bicycle rider with more practice and some ideas on what they should be doing. So those are some of the things we're going to be talking about. So the process is sort of the behaviors, and then a property, a set of characteristics attributed to those perceived as to use influence successfully. So the properties of good leaders, another way to say that is their traits, right? And we'll also talk about traits of good leaders, right? And some of the things you can grow in yourself, and other things you cannot. Most of the things you can. And then to answer the question, what is leadership? And I wrote my dissertation on leadership. It was leadership in different styles of leadership in different organizational cultures. And in my dissertation, I say there's hundreds and hundreds, I think it was 1,200 different definitions somebody found in their research of leadership, so it's quite large. But many of them refer back to one word, right? This word in black here, influence. It's the ability to exert influence on others toward a specific goal. Now, like Star Wars, right? It's like the Force. It could be used for good. It could be used for bad. There's certainly a lot of leaders who we would view as evil or push people towards bad goals, but that's a value judgment, right? That has no reflection upon leadership itself. But leadership is seen as influence. If you're the leader of a group and you take over a group and they were already going to do something and they do it with you as their leader, you may be their leader, the official leader, but you're not exerting influence because they were going to do it anyway, right? So leadership has to do with change. And as this is a class in organizational development, we want to develop our organization better. Leadership certainly has its place in that. As a matter of fact, leadership is absolutely vital. That's why we have 3 chapters of it in a book in organizational development, because leadership is certainly that important. So think about the word influence, right? What are we going to influence? The ability to affect people's perceptions, their beliefs, their attitudes, essentially their motivation. That's why we had a whole chapter about different motivational techniques, right? And the behaviors of others. Right, so a lot of the stuff we've been talking about here certainly feeds up into leadership, and in terms of your career growth, your advancement, both in work and outside of work, right? Certainly leadership is something that factors into that. Excellent leadership skills can take you a long, long way and help you achieve your goals in life, whatever those might be. So Cotter from Harvard looked at what's the difference between management and leadership, and he's certainly not the first one to do this. You go back to the 50s, you have people writing about things like this, and Cotter's just sort of one of the more famous ones at Harvard. He talks about organizational change a lot. So, and I get asked this sometimes in class, what's the difference between management and leadership? Right? Well, certainly the classical definition of what managers do is planning, leading, organizing, and controlling. Again, those 4 things. Planning, leading, organizing, controlling. So leading is one of the things managers are supposed to be doing. Do they all do it? No. I had a manager who let's just say he was a little lacking in the leadership department, right? He was a pretty good organizer, but not so much when it comes to leadership. So he's sort of a bureaucrat who made sure the paperwork was done properly, never influenced us, never set direction. We were pretty much left to our own devices. So let's take a look. So as an activity on this table, creating an agenda. Right, so you're creating an agenda, what you want to do. A manager would look at planning and budgeting, establishing the detailed steps, detailed timetables for achieving, right? These good project management activities, all very essential, right? What does a leader do? Establish a direction, right? Get a vision for the future, often the distant future, and then strategies for producing the change needed. Then how are we going to influence this change to get us towards this new vision, right? So one has to deal with planning and budgeting, but leadership has to do with vision and direction and getting people motivated and changing the organization, all of that, right? So we see although the manager part of it is vital, right? Nothing happens without the leadership. So you think back in terms of managers being efficient and effective, right? Leadership is about effectiveness. Are we going towards the right goals? Are we moving that direction? But management might be more towards efficiency. Do we have the right planning in place? Do we have a schedule? Do we have a budget? Those type of things. Next activity, develop a human network for achieving an agenda. So managers, right? Planning, organizing, leading, controlling. So the planning is the first part, which we already talked about, all the steps needed to get organized. But then the organizing part is establish some structure. So having an organizational diagram, dividing who's on teams, delegating responsibility, all those kind of things, right? As opposed to a leader, less formal, they're aligning people. They're communicating the direction by words and deeds to all those whose cooperation may be needed, right? Whether they're in the organization or not, they're trying to get people moving in that direction. Right, so planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So here we have executing plans down here. So controlling and problem solving for the managers, monitor results versus plan, take the corrective action if necessary. Nothing wrong with that, right? That's what managers do. As opposed to what leaders do, motivating and inspiring, energize the people to overcome political, bureaucratic, and resource barriers. Things are going to get in the way. We have to go over them. We have to go through them. We have to go around them. We have to come up with creative solutions on our own. Right? Sometimes people, do we give up at the first time somebody tells us no, or do we have a workaround? Do we figure out a way to do it ourselves? Do we call in favors from others? Right? Do we motivate somebody outside our organization to do it just because it's the right thing to do? Right? And then outcomes. Right? We look at it's very predictable probably what a manager gets. They have a very detailed plan on what they want, how to get there, and so forth. Whereas a leader produces change often to a dramatic degree that has the potential to produce extremely useful change. So if we think of management as incremental changes in small increments, we would think of leadership as revolutionary change where we're really going to change things in a big way.